जो तो मिटाना चाहे जीवन की तृष्णा, जो तो मिटाना चाहे जीवन की तृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा, जो तो मिटाना चाहे जीवन की तृष्णा, जो तो मिटाना चाहे जीवन की तृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा। कृष्ण नाम पावन पावन, कृष्ण नाम प्यारा प्यारा, जो न बोले कृष्णा कृष्णा जग में वो हारा हारा। कृष्ण नाम पावन पावन, कृष्ण नाम प्यारा प्यारा, जो न बोले कृष्णा कृष्णा जग में वो हारा हारा। मन का मिटे अंधियारा बोल कृष्ण कृष्णा, मन का मिटे अंधियारा बोल कृष्ण कृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा, सुबह शाम बोल बंदे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्णा। यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवतु भारत, अभ्युत्थानम् धर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्। प्रेम से बोलो श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जय। First of all, devotees and friends, I must say a special Sitaram and a warm welcome to each and every one of you all this afternoon as we engage in that of Gyan Shakti, the spiritual awakening. Myself, I am Pandit Navin, and I have Pandit Hemant with me. And this afternoon, first of all, we would like to dedicate this episode of Gyan Shakti to two great souls that have passed on this year, two brothers to us, Uncle Ricky Nagapoli, and of course to our brother Justin Motoviran. We want to dedicate this episode of Gyan Shakti to them. They were two very great souls to us, who we considered just like our own brothers, and they always encourage us to follow this path of Dharma, and they always encourage us to stay strong and be there to support us, really true friends of ours, and we want to wish this, that their soul find peace, and we want to dedicate this special episode of Gyan Shakti to them. Nam Nam Satya. Devotees, as we approach that of the Krishna Janam Ashtami, it is appropriate that we converse in that of Gyan Shakti, giving us that indication where Lord Krishna is concerned. The bhajan so beautifully says, Krishna Nama Pavan Pavan, Krishna Nama Pyare Pyara Pyara, Jo na bole Krishna Krishna, Jag mein wo hara hara. Devotees, the particular bhajan is giving us an indication about Sri Krishna Bhagwan. His name is pure. He is pure. He is so beautiful. He is so kind. Sri Krishna Bhagwan represents to us an indication in society today of God is, of who God is, of what God is to us. Because as Hemant has asked a question before, who am I?
Who am I? What am I? And what is my destination? If we could actually give answers to these questions, then there we'll be able to find answers to a lot of unanswered questions that we may have inside of us.
And of course, the spiritual awakening is one that gets us to these certain destinations, right? And we as individuals have to recognize our being, we have to recognize what we are going to do, and we have to recognize where we're going to carry on. Sri Krishna Bhagwan is explaining to that of Arjuna in the battlefield so many different things about the soul, about life, about death, about society, about what is happening. And that format of education that he's instructing Arjuna is what we have to use to follow in today's society to find our way. To talk about Sri Krishna Bhagwan, you're not just talking about a god, but you're talking about an individual who represents divinity in so many different fashions. Because everything that he has manifested in this world, he has shown the world. Hemant and Ramayana, Sri Ram never flashed the fact that he was the Lord of this universe. Only a true devotee would understand that that was God himself. That was Sri Ram, Sri Vishnu Bhagwan.
Yeah.
Sri Krishna Bhagwan, devotees, was blatantly telling the universe, I am God, I am Bhagwan, And unfortunately to society today, many of us, or many of the people at that time, were unable to see God there. And they were unable to see God there because they were not looking for that format of spirituality. That is why the Bhagavad Gita took place on a battlefield, the Kurukshetra, because it was an indication to show what was happening there. Sometimes in reality today, there will be a continuously fight, and that particular battle shows us the fight that we fight. And we fight humanity, we fight ourselves, we fight each other, we fight the whole world, because sometimes the ego and the arrogance are the soldiers that are the Kauravas. And the positivity that is inside of us, the strength that is inside of us, is what the Pandavas represent. So we need to understand that this body itself is like the battlefield, and the mind is where everything is being taken place. But the mind controls the body, and we have to go from there. But nevertheless, as we approach out of the Janam Ashtami, it is appropriate that we explain to you the proper things necessary to do that of Sri Krishna Bhagwan Puja on Tuesday, the 27th of August. Devotees, Sri Krishna Bhagwan, like we said, is like any other. He is special, he is different, he stands in society in so many different ways. And Bhagavad Gita teaches us about the indication of Sri Krishna Bhagwan. Bhagavad Gita shows us about life, it shows us about society. In doing that of Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna Bhagwan in 3 parts was trying to show Arjun 3 different formats of what the soul is trying to attain. He's told him about Karma Yoga, which is the act of doing. We all live in a karma-ridden world, which means this is our journey to live in this world. When we wake up in the morning and we say, why life is so bad? Why are we struggling in this world? We are struggling because of karma. And karma shows us an indication of the need for attachment. Right? Because we so want in this world today that we forget sometimes that these things are the things that lead us away from God. But most importantly, it leads us away from ourselves. And in doing so, a good katha to explain about that is many of you all will be aware of the katha of Sudama and Sri Krishna Bhagwan. Right? You might remember that katha.
Yes.
Where both Sudama and Krishna Bhagwan were both students of the Guru. And the Guru sent them in the forest to get wood for fire. And Sudama went up on the tree, and Sri Krishna Bhagwan was on the other side, and it was raining. And Sri Krishna Bhagwan says to Sudama, he says, I'm hungry, do you have something? And Sudama says no. But inside his pocket he had
little chana that his Guru Ma had patched for him. But she didn't patch it for Sudama alone, but for Lord Krishna also.
Right, for both of them. Now, again, that is the act of sharing. Right? Sharing is what we need in this world today. Right? Because if we share love for the whole entire universe today, what happens? Everybody is happy. Right? And he began to eat. And Lord Krishna was asking him, he said, Sudama, do you have something? Because when you're eating the chana, you hear any crunch, right? And Sudama said no. And the rain eased up, and they went back. And many years later, Sudama, no, he was a Brahmin, he was a Pandit, but yet he was poor, he had nothing. He had his children, he had his wife, he didn't have anything there. And his wife used to tell him, Sudama, why don't you go? Why don't you go see your friend Sri Krishna Bhagwan? And Sudama would say no, he was ashamed. Again, the act of karma is the result of our actions. You understand? Yeah. Right? Because when we have that format of action there, sometimes it reflects on us. Right? If I steal one of Heman's drum, I may not be able to face him because I know how close it is to him. And by me not being able to face him, I end up losing myself there. Right? So towards Sudama, he was unable to face the Lord because he knew that he did something. And the mind and the conscience is one of the greatest guilt that is there, that we cannot fight. Right? And she urged him to go, and he decided to go. And he didn't have much to give to him, but he patched the rice. And he gave him the rice. And Sudama went to that of Dwarka. And when he went there, he went in front of the god. And he was asking the god to see that of Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna, from where he was, could hear the voice of Sudama. And from where he was, he left everything. He got up from where he was and he ran downstairs to where Sudama was. The bare feet, right? The king of the universe is walking down there with nothing there, right? Just with a hand filled with love. Because in life today, we may be the richest people in the world, we may have all the wealth, all the knowledge, everything, but if we do not use it appropriately, it's nothing. And this is what the Lord was explaining to this world. Even though he had all these resources that were there, he didn't need it to make himself happy on this universe today. Right? And he came and he welcomed Sudama, he brought him in, he put him on the throne to sit down, even allowed to wash his feet and so forth. Right? And he began to ask him, he said to him, he said, tell me what I can do for you. And at that point, he said to him, he said, I'm sure my Bauji must have sent something for me. Now Sudama sitting down there now, he come into this humongous palace and he's asking himself, how can I give? But again, that becomes very political, because in this world and society today, God looks at class. He doesn't look at class. He doesn't look at richness. He doesn't look at poor. He doesn't look at color. He looks at nothing, but he looks at the person's soul. And that is what is important today, the soul. Because the soul, if we allow the soul to live within the body, a lot of people today know who we are. That's why Heyman asked the question earlier, who are we? Sudama lost who he was. And we can also cross-reference that with Karma Yoga. And Lord Krishna at that time, he said to him, he said, Sudama was hiding it now. So he pulled it out away from him. He said, I know she sent this for me. And he took one mouthful, and he took a second mouthful, and he was about to take the third mouthful. Mother Lakshmi had to at that time come and stop him and tell him, you're going to give him everything? At that point, Sudama, he stayed the night, he reminisced with his friend, and he went back home. And when he went back home now, where he had his little hut, there wasn't a little hut anymore. Instead, there was a huge mansion. And he saw this woman coming out dressed, and it was his wife dressed in the finest saris. And she looked at him and she smiled. And he asked her what happened. And she said, by the grace of God. Karma Yoga devotees, what Shri Krishna Bhagavan was explaining to Arjun, was about the concept of understanding the gifts that we have, but not to use it. It was about understanding that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But one should not attach to the world, one should not attach to anything in this world and society, because at the end of the day, we come in this world empty-handed, we will go back empty-handed. Yeah. The only thing that we take is our karma and good actions, hoping to redeem ourselves so that we may come back, or we may merge with the Almighty God. So that is why it is important that even though we have so many different things, the most priceless thing in this world today is the love that we share for others. Because that is something you cannot buy, you will not get on the home shopping network, you will not get anywhere at all in this world. It is something that comes from the soul, and that is where God is there. And from doing so, he also gave him an indication about Bhakti Yoga, because after you learn about detachment from this world, after you learn about giving up all these things, you learn about Bhakti Yoga, which is devotion. Bhakti Yoga is prostration towards the Almighty God, right? Leaving that format of faith within Him, right? In format of devotion. Bhakti Yoga is what we are going to do when Tuesday approaches and we sit down to make our clear indication towards that Shri Krishna Bhagavan, right? A good friend of mine always says, when she goes in front of God, she doesn't ask God for a million things. Instead, she says to God, bless me with what is right for me. Bhakti Yoga explains to us that about devotion in this world. Another katha in this world, Hema, those were Drupadi. I think I'll allow you to go ahead and relay that.
Well, it is said that in the Mahabharata, actually Drupadi, they were disrobing her in the Sabha hall. Duryodhana and his brother Dusasan were evil-minded people, and they wanted to get the better of them, and they were disrobing her in front of all the kings and all the army and stuff, and she was her husbands there, the Pandavas couldn't do anything because they made a bet with a game and they lost the game, and